This is Jess with Local Music Somewhere, and you're listening to rBeatz Radio. All right, hey guys, we are here in St. Augustine with Local Music Somewhere, and today we're at a recording studio called Fish Tank Recordings. I'm here with Lucio Rubino, and he is going to, tell us a little bit about what he does here in this facility and what the area is like. So can you just maybe tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. So I've been recording in St. Augustine for almost 30 years. And this is probably the 7th iteration of the Fish Tank recordings. But yeah, so I kind of do a lot of things. I feel like as a professional musician, in order to make ends meet, you have to kind of do a bit of everything. So,
Right.
A lot of what I do is having artists that are songwriters come in and that maybe play guitar or bass and sing. They will do that with me, and then I get to create the rest of the band. So, creating the drums, bass, guitars, keyboards, vocal stacks, and then also vocal coaching. Obviously the recording side of it and mixing.
Yeah.
But anything from A to Z, I kind of feel like I can do and help artists in that way.
A to Z, all genres.
Yeah. I mean, not all genres. I definitely have my roots in rock, country, metal. I do a lot of country these days. I really enjoy doing pop, like female singer pop is something that I really enjoy. I don't do too much hip hop. It's I think there's obviously a valid place for it in the industry. It's just not something that I'm super excited about.
Right.
So I don't do that as much, but I do a little bit of that. And where my skills fall off in the hip hop world, I have another engineer that really excels at that. So he takes all those hip hop sessions,
Gotcha.
Which is nice because I get to help young engineers get their feet wet in a studio that they may not otherwise be able to afford.
Nice. Well, we have a lot of listeners that are kind of independent beginning musicians. So can you maybe take us through a day in the studio? Like, what does that even look like? How does it work when someone communicates their ideas, and how do you even start to put a song together?
Sure. Well, I think that it's really different for everyone. So it's hard to put it in a box, but if I were to kind of generalize it, usually the beginning of the session is us just kind of getting to know each other and figuring out like, what is this song coming from? What place is it coming from? So in that and also where are they coming from in terms of the artist's skill set? So I figure out what my role is in that. So, is it going to be a therapy session? Do we need to talk about our feelings? Because I do a lot of that.
Yeah.
I think it's really a part of it to
Yeah.
pull performances out of your artists. You have to really feel where they're coming from.
Yeah.
But yeah, so and then when it comes to the nuts and bolts, I guess a lot of times we'll figure out what the tempo is. Mm-hmm. So making the click track.
Yes.
And then what instruments are they going to play, if any? Is the song written? Is a lot of times people will just come with a couple of lyrical ideas, and I'll help them develop a melody. So I'll be playing guitar or whatever. We figure out what genre it is. Is it country? Is it what is it? Yeah. So and then we start building. We start with the click track. We might start with a scratch acoustic or a piano, and then I like to get at least one vocal in there, because as I build the instruments, I want to make sure that I'm supporting the vocal and not getting in the way of it.
Right.
Getting all these other ideas that are going to cloud what the meaning of the song is. So and then through the day, it moment by moment can seem a little bit boring and tedious, but by the time 4 or 5 hours has gone by, we've got like this production starting to take shape, and it's like super exciting.
It is. I don't think people understand too sometimes when they come into the studio how, it's not just playing through the whole song. I mean, sometimes you're on the same measure for a minute and you'll hear it over and over, and it always makes, I feel like people giggle the first time they're in the studio and they're like hearing the same moment.
Vocal tuning.
Yeah.
Sometimes artists will just you might want to leave the room for this.
Oh yeah, because some people,
it's like I have to go line by line. I put it on loop playback, and I'm tweaking, and by the the time maybe 15 or 20 seconds goes by, it goes from what it was, which is not always great. Sometimes there's great singers, But it goes, then all of a sudden it becomes like perfect, and they're like, whoa.
I did such a
or
thing.
It becomes this cringy sort of like moment where it's super exposed to where like, wow, that actually sounds really good.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yes, it does.
Oh, that's the magic of engineering. And that's two totally different things, I feel, because, you have the ability to produce, which is, letting the artists do what they're best at. And then the engineering side's a whole different ball game. I mean, you're talking about, connections and signals and things that, like, personally, I don't have any patience for. It's very hard for me.
Right.
So I like to work with someone, who's already got that as one of their, things that they love to do. Because I know that some engineers, they love hooking it up, and it's just like, it's like a foreplay for them. It's like all day making sure everything is the way they need
Honestly,
to be.
like, secret here, I don't really enjoy that part of it.
Really?
So
Okay.
I honestly got really good at it, so I don't have to think about it anymore.
Uh-huh.
Like, I almost got good at it out of laziness. I know that sounds really messed up.
No, that's good.
Or like, I actually think I even became a better singer, so I didn't have to fix my awful vocals all the time.
Yeah, you know what? There's something to that. Yeah, no, because even when we were talking about recording to tape or like something before computers, and you have to just like pick what you want to get good with, so you don't have to deal with what you don't love. So yeah, when you're coming up with artists or developing their projects and all of that, you have a history of music. Now, you started way long ago. Can you kind of tell me about, how you got even into this in the first place?
Well, back in the late 1900s.
Oh, we're going back.
How did I start with this? So I live in St. Augustine, Florida. This is where we are right now. My high school had Guitar 1 class. And so my parents weren't super supportive of anything. Really. So you know how there's that time period where like when you have like that first week where you can still change your schedule and you can change out of your electives and stuff? Well, I made sure that I was past that point before I told my mom I was in guitar class and she had to buy me a guitar.
Wow.
I was like, it's already passed. I can't get out of this class. You have to buy me a guitar.
Good move.
Manipulated that a little bit. But she went and bought me my first guitar from the local guitar store,
That's great.
And really quickly, I picked it up. And within like 6 months, I was like, knew I wanted to record myself. So my first recording scenario for myself, I'll try not to make this super long, but it was a friend of mine that had this like boombox, and he sold it to me for $5. And it was broken. It was like 2 cassettes, right?
Okay, yeah.
So like, I had like, you can do a cassette to cassette.
Yeah.
Kids used to record one cassette to another so that you could make your mixtape. Okay. But it also had this microphone on the side of it.
Yeah.
And the thing was broken. So when you were doing this cassette to cassette, the microphone was still active.
Oh.
So I saw this as an opportunity.
Yes.
So I could record like a guitar part, and then I would put that in the playback into the record, and I would play that guitar part to the tape, the other stuff.
Yeah.
And record a new part or a vocal. And I started,
that's
how I started
so
overdubbing
cool.
myself.
Yeah.
Weird, but also one tape side was faster than the other. So I had to keep tuning my guitar.
Yeah.
But then I finally had, my mom saw that I was really into it, and she actually bought me my first like Tascam 4-track, and I started doing that, and I started layering my vocals, and I was like, something clicked to me when I was like 14 or 15 years old. So I was like, I can keep making up parts like all day long that work with this song. You know? So then I realized that's producing.
Yeah.
So then I started just really enjoying producing, and then I had that 4-track, and then I bought my first 8-track recorder, which was called an ADAT. It was actually on a VHS type tape with like an old Mackie mixer. And then I got 2 8-tracks and had 16 tracks, and then by the time I was already like playing gigs and just kind of writing my own songs and producing them with a drum machine. It was really difficult back then, honestly. It was like you had to do all these weird things to
get what you're trying to do. Right. Yeah.
And so I wrote and recorded this song, and I let this guy I knew that was a producer, because it was producing another band that I was playing for. I let him hear the song, and I played it for him over the phone, and over my landline phone. Dating myself here. But and he loved it.
Yeah.
So he worked in this studio in Jacksonville. It was the Leonard Skinner studio. It was called Freebird.
Oh, okay.
Really nice facility.
Nice.
And so he helped me record it like on the off days. So like we did it on like Christmas Eve, and we did it on like New Year's Day when there was nobody in the studio.
Yeah.
And the time was free because I didn't have any money. I was a kid. And before the song was even mixed, the local rock radio station picked it up and added it to their playlist.
Wow.
So stuff started happening for me really quickly. I started like, I had to put a band together because Arista, Epic, RCA, Universal Records were all like, who is this guy?
Wow, yeah.
Yeah. And so we did this, showcase, and it just happened so fast. And back then my voice just wasn't ready.
Okay.
So I had all of these, like, I even, like, do you know who Clive Davis is?
Yeah.
I went to his home and showcased for Clive in his home,
Wow.
and L.A. Reid in his office.
Wow. Now, how old were you at this time?
I was 24.
Oh my gosh.
23.
That's so exciting.
And now I'm 25.
Exactly.
Just kidding,
It's
I'm
amazing how
not
technology really...
Amazing how Botox works. But yeah, so I didn't get a record deal based out of all those showcases, but I did get a publishing deal because they liked my writing. So I signed with EMI back then, and I got a little bit of money.
Yeah.
It was actually a $200,000 publishing deal,
Wow.
which back then wasn't a lot. Now that's a lot for a publishing deal.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I took some of that money and bought my first Pro Tools rig, because I was like, I spent so much money on those recordings to get that deal.
Yeah.
I was like, I could do this myself. I know that I can do it.
Yeah.
I just need to have the gear to do it. So I bought my first Pro Tools rig, and then I started recording my friends, and I was recording myself, and started studios, and got myself a record deal finally in 2003. And started touring around, having a bunch of hits at radio. And then I started a family and stopped touring. And so focused more on my production, and really started bulking up my studio business and gear, and continuing my education on how to do a good job, how to be a good person.
Yeah.
Still working on that one.
I think...
But yeah, now it just in this past couple of years, starting to tour again with some rock bands, which has been a lot of fun.
I was gonna say, I saw on Instagram you were playing recently, and so I gotta come catch you somewhere live.
That'll be great.
Yeah.
Well, the next thing I've got booked for like a big stage type rock show is Shipwrecked.
Okay.
Do you know what that is?
I think I've heard of it.
It's like a cruise where there's a bunch of rock bands.
Yeah, we were talking about this, right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I'm playing on Shipwrecked in February. Should book a cabin.
Shipwrecked, yeah.
She needs a date.
Oh my
Maybe
gosh. Oh, that's great. So yeah, you've really done so much. I feel like you could write a whole book on all of this. Like, I mean.
Yeah, I tried to give you the short.
Right. Yeah, but I mean, just even when you're saying the 2003, the signing and the touring, I mean, I'm sure there's a million stories packed into just that one era.
Yeah, touring for years. And
Yeah, so like...
Guyliner, I mean, that's a whole subgenre in itself.
We want to bring that back now. We were talking about the Guyliner. All right, let's see.
It's weird, though. It's like, when I tell this story and I remind myself of all the stuff that I've done and been through, it's like, wow, I've done all that stuff.
Yeah.
But it's so weird because you're like, when you're hustling and you're working as a professional musician, it's constant.
Right.
Like, you're like working 80 hours to avoid the 40-hour work week.
Yep,
You know what I mean?
That's what it is.
So it's so I'm in such a bubble, and it's always about what's the next thing. How am I gonna pay my bills now?
Yeah.
So it's a struggle, and it's like I don't even think about a lot of times those the past successes, and I think about more of the failures, honestly. Unfortunately, maybe that's part of my trauma.
Yeah. I mean, because all of that
There's
makes
plenty of those.
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, I asked some of the people about their best gigs and worst gigs, and there's all kinds of stories in there, but that just makes you who you are on a subconscious level when you're working with anyone. you know, in the now, as we're talking about, you know, you're drawing upon all of that constantly. And I think that's such a huge value. And for anybody to come into this studio to really, you know, understand everything you've done and the person that you are in terms of putting art first and, you know, wanting to connect with the artist first and then, you know, draw out the best project possible. I just think that you've created such a heavenly space, such a great space for people to come to. Yeah. And I mean, and I really feel that, you know, on an emotional level, when I first met you, I knew I wanted to work with you.
Thank you.
I just, you know,
Likewise.
the facility's great. You got like everything. I feel comfortable, you know, and that's the biggest thing. You want your artists to feel comfortable. Right. You know, and it's not always the case sometimes in some studios, you know.
And I also realize I'm not going to be for everyone, too.
Right.
I mean, I can try to make connection and make people feel comfortable, but sometimes you vibe and sometimes you don't.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's not all that often when I really just don't. But also, I'm at the point in my life where if I can see that this relationship isn't going to work, I'm not going to drag us both through the mud. I'm going to be like, listen, there's going to be no charge for it today. And here's your files. I just don't think I'm your producer.
Gotcha, yeah.
And I try to be super tactful. Actually, one time I did that.
Yeah.
And it was a hip-hop artist, and he actually threatened to do a drive-by.
Are you kidding me?
Side story, yeah.
We meet all kinds in this business, but that is really...
It was actually one of the times when I decided that maybe I'm not a hip-hop producer.
Gotcha, yeah. Yeah, that's wild.
I don't need that kind of garbage.
Wow. You know, because I hear about people ripping off this and that, and that's all part of any industry, you know, and all of that. But to have an actual threat, you know, physically on your...
He's just the guy... I wasn't even the engineer. It was an engineer that I was hiring at the time. And he was just getting, like, really angry because he wasn't getting, like... And the engineer was like, we've got nothing to work with. I've been trying for, like, hours to get something, and he's just not good.
Gotcha.
You know, so how do you tell somebody that, like, we're not getting anywhere? And you don't want to, like, just waste their money, or actually he didn't even attempt to pay anyway. But I was like, listen, like, don't worry about the money. I called him up. I was like, I think we're just going to give you what you've done. We'll give you, and I haven't said it for your next producer. And he's like, oh, no, I'm going to pay you and all this stuff. And, and I'm like, no, it's cool.
Yeah,
we're
just
good.
Cut the ties.
Maybe you should find another producer. I can maybe give you a recommendation, which I would not recommend that guy to anyone, even if I didn't like the producer.
Yeah.
But so it just didn't work out. But that's such a rare
thing. I was going to say you've had so many
other successes. I focused on that way too long. No. Usually it's a really loving situation.
Yeah.
It's like we're like excited about it, and we, you know, sometimes the hardest part for these sessions is when the record is done. Because it's like we've spent so much intimate time connecting, and me delicately trying to uplift what the artist's message is, and their, you know, and I have such a heartfelt connection to the music.
Yeah. And
I know that's I mean, we're friends now, but it's not like we're gonna be like, I mean, sometimes I make friends and they're gonna call me and say what's up, but many times I'm like, are we done now? Is this it?
Oh my gosh.
A lot of times people come back for their next record.
Yeah.
But you know, that's kind of hard sometimes. It's just like say we're done.
Yeah, that's emotional. So like let's talk about one of the some of the successes. I know you've had plenty here out of this studio and on the work that you've done and some of the artists that you've worked with. Sure. I mean, can we maybe talk about that a little bit?
Sure. Do you mean successes in terms of names that our listeners might have heard of,
or not even that, but just a successful project as well, you know?
So one success that keeps on coming up for me is an artist that I'm working with right now named Caroline Carr. She's based out of Dallas, Texas, and she's an influencer, and she decided to start doing music. And I'm so grateful that the stars aligned for her and I to work together, because we work together so well.
Yeah.
And we really created this trusting relationship, and I'm helping her find her voice, literally. And we're writing together, so I'm helping her find her genre. And we just really just kind of love each other, and it's just such a great when an artist, for me, that this is a huge success, not only because we're doing really great work, but it's like she's coming back, she's also paying the rate that I asked for, and I feel honored, she feels honored, and we were making great art together.
Yeah.
And for me, that is like the best scenario possible.
Yeah.
Because it's like, you know, it's like firing on all cylinders.
Yeah.
And even when sometimes we might have a miss on something, we communicate super intelligently.
Mm-hmm.
And we're like, oh, maybe this wasn't the best thing. Let's try it again.
Yeah.
You know, and when nobody gets, you know, their feelings hurt about or anything.
Right.
And it's just like a really good relationship.
Yeah.
And her manager is fantastic. And she's starting to see success in her single, and she's actually releasing another single maybe this week, or her second single, and it's just going really well. We're really excited about the new song.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of stuff that I love.
Yeah, that's super fulfilling.
Yeah, and especially when it's like an artist that it's like I get to be a part of their you know, them coming up.
Yeah.
Because sometimes working with bigger artists, it's not a lot of fun.
Right.
There's labels involved. There's, you know,
yeah,
a lot of cutthroat stuff that happens, and it just like makes me want to quit.
Yeah, I wonder about that. So like, you know, with labels being involved, how does that affect your projects in here sometimes, like good and bad?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like there's a lot you're about to.
Yeah, I'm feeling very triggered right now.
Okay.
Just kidding. I'm kidding. No, I can have hard conversations. I can have hard conversations. I
mean, we don't have to get into it.
I'm kidding. There's a situation with one band one time that was a very high profile client that had just passed away, that I was asked to do the record, and they, you know, they liked the work that I kind of showed them that I could do, and all of a sudden everybody was excited, and then this other manager got involved, and there was another producer involved, and there was like all this kind of cutthroat stuff happening, and then it ended up where I was like, and I'm so not used to dealing on that level with like contracts and lawyers. I mean, contracts are fine, but
mm-hmm.
but where everything was like, I just didn't know what to do, and I ended up getting completely screwed. I did the work for like 9 songs,
Wow.
and then all of a sudden I got the whole record taken away, and it was really good work, and they loved it.
Yeah.
And this other producer ended up getting the work, and it wasn't the other producer's fault. It was the band and the label and the manager that was like kind of like was pitbull kind of bullying kind of, and he didn't like the way I was wanting things to be on the table. He wanted to be his like sneaky backhanded techniques and stuff, and I'm just not good with that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I like things to be on the table so everybody knows where we're at.
Yeah.
You know.
Wow.
And it just ended up where I only got 1 song on the record, and it was just like really shitty feeling.
Yeah.
I hated it.
Yeah.
So it made me just like, I was so depressed about it. Like I was besides myself, because I was so excited about the project that I made the mistake of kind of like identifying with it and making like, this is who I am, this is my project, blah blah. And so I connected it to, you know, an identity.
Mm-hmm.
And when it was taken away from me, I felt like it really ripped my heart out.
Yeah.
You know, and so I remember, I'm like big into the power of manifestation too. I think that it's like, we have this, all of us, I think, and some people are better at it than others, but we all have this power to be able to pull from source, whatever that is for you, and be able to co-create what we want out of this life, you know, and do things well.
Yeah. And
I remember after that, I was pumping gas, and I was like, what am I doing? I have the power to choose what I do with my life, who I work with, how much money I make, all these things. So I decided to remember my power in that moment. I set an intention. I said, I want to work with artists that are doing well, that do this for a living. I want to get paid my rate. I want to have fun. Mm-hmm. And I want it to be like a beautiful exchange of art and energy and ideas.
Yeah.
And that's what I want.
Yeah.
And literally, I was half a mile from home. By the time I got home, I got 2 phone calls. One was from the band Red, which I've since helped them with their new record and went on tour with them. Mm-hmm. And also from a really good friend of mine that's an incredible mastering engineer. Mixing engineer and producer. And he was working on a band called Starset at the time, which is also another big rock band. Mm-hmm. And I got to co-write and play bass on their whole record.
Wow.
So I was like, thank you.
Yeah.
great spirit.
Yeah, just being open to all the good things
That's
to come
right.
your way.
You have to just allow it to come in.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely feel that here, and I'm very excited to get to start working with you.
Me too.
Which, stay tuned, because we will be working on something and sharing that very shortly. Anything else you want to tell our listeners today? Mm-hmm. Any advice for any, musicians who are in the game, or, a reminder that maybe something that,
This has been coming up, so I will thank you for asking me that question. So I think something that I have to keep reminding artists to do, there's definitely this side of being an artist that you want to shoot for, this being this 1%, I'm going to be the next, Michael Jackson or Pink or whoever it is that's doing really well in music. But I think that it's important to, I'm not saying don't shoot for that. Absolutely shoot for that. But also remember, it's not the business part of it that's going to get you there. You get there because you're really passionate about doing what you're doing. And I'm doing this because I have to. This is something that's got to come out of me. And that's got to be the reason that you make music. And it's got to come from that place. The business part has to be coupled with that, or having a team around you that that can support that if you don't have those skill sets.
Right.
But learn those skill sets, but be really good at what you do and do it for the right reason.
I totally agree. I wish someone would have told me that when I started, because I feel, it's very easy to go about this in a backwards way, which you're only shooting yourself in the foot when you do it that way. So great words of advice, words of wisdom. Thank you so much for having us today. All right. Thank you guys for listening, and we'll catch you next time. Thanks as always for tuning into rBeatz Radio. Search for more local music somewhere on rBeatz.com and follow our social media for highlighted artists as we travel with #LocalMusicSomewhere.